Tippy, I'm going to do it softly, and I'll just lead us in the prayer and pledge. I'm going to call the word. If you'd stand and join me as I pray, and we'll face the flag, say the pledge, all of that. Bow your heads. Father, we just, as we enter your presence and join in this meeting tonight, we just acknowledge that you have blessed us in mighty ways beyond what we could ever imagine. You continue to bless us as a city. Thank you for these citizens who come here to take part in this meeting. Thank you for our staff, our legal, our counsel who has prepared these documents. Pray that you have prepared us in a way where we can answer these questions, these citizens, and that we can lead the city in a way that's going to honor and glorify you. Father, we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Recorder, call the roll, please.
Mayor Bunker.
Here.
Vice Mayor Roman.
Here.
Commissioner Wesley Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Matt Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Plum.
Here. Okay. I want to say one thing before we get started. This by all means, I think, is the most significant item that this body has considered in the history of the city, besides maybe the passing of our city charter. And so we want to do this in an orderly fashion. I am going to, much like the last time, allow the public to speak before the commissioners speak. We will go to staff for the report. After our city recorder has read into the record the resolution and it's brought to the floor, we'll go to our staff report. We'll go to citizens to speak, and then we will go to the commission for comments and a vote up or down on the resolution. So if you would like to speak, I've mentioned a couple of times, I'll mention for the final time, if you would like to speak to the item on the agenda, get the deputy's attention. The deputy will bring you, one of the deputies will bring you a card to fill out. Get their attention again when it's complete. You will deliver that to me and we'll call your name at the appropriate time. All right? Have a couple there in the back. Madam Recorder, if you're ready, call the first item, please.
Resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Lakeland, Tennessee, requesting the Industrial Development Board of the City of Lakeland, Tennessee to issue not to exceed $16 million in aggregate principal amount of public improvement bonds, City of Lakeland School Project, for the purpose of funding the acquisition and construction of schools, and to enter into all documents related to the foregoing, and authorizing the levy of a direct annual tax in conjunction therewith.
Okay. Do you have a motion to get this to the floor? I have a motion by the Vice Mayor. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Matt Wright. Items properly on the floor for discussion. Let me go to staff. Mr. City Manager, you have the floor.
Thank you. I want to go through a couple things here before we turn it back to y'all. First of all, the resolution in front of you will be explained by Mr. Patterson. He'll go through that in a minute, talk about actually what is in that resolution and the nuts and bolts of it. I will say that the school board reviewed it last night and they unanimously approved the resolution as presented to them unanimously, so that is before you now. What I want to talk about is go over or represent some of the financing on the high school project. We have how we got to the numbers we got to and explain that, how we're going to budget for them. And the big question that people have been asking is why now, why this month as opposed to next year? And we have some information from PFM, Colorado PFM, and that also will be available to answer questions. So let me go through, first of all, talking about some of our early estimates. If you recall back in mid-November, we presented some numbers to you. Our estimates were based on a couple things, a 30-year term. We actually originally looked at a 35 also, that was thrown out, a 30-year term with interest rates at 4% and 4.5% to run our estimates. At a 4% interest rate, the annual debt service payment would be $3.05 million. Under the 4.5% interest rate, it would be $3.24 million. What's important to us at a staff level or city level, I guess as a whole, is how do we make up the difference? That's an increase from what we're currently paying on debt service So the increase in debt service under the 4% interest rate is approximately $830,000 under that scenario. And under the higher one, the 4.5%, is just over $1 million in additional money. I had Kyle look at what the current rate is, just to get some perspective on where we are now. As of today, the rate is actually at 3.5%, which is quite a bit lower. That'd be an annual debt service payment of $2.8 million, and the increase in debt service in that scenario would be about $590,000. So a shorter gap to make up. So where does that money come from? This is something I presented, I believe, a couple weeks ago. Generally speaking, I'll do the same again tonight. We've identified 3 areas of potential to make up that deficit. First one is roads. As you recall, over the past couple of years, we've significantly increased our road spending. Last year, budgeted $1.15 million in roads. This year, $900,000 in roads. Previous to that, 2016, $415,000. So the last 3 years, we've seen a significant increase from where we were. Between 2007 and 2015, we saw an average spending of $118,000 per year. So going from $118,000 average up to, again, in 2016, increased it to $415,000, then $1.15 million last year, and $900,000 this year. So one thing that was suggested that we look into is, for making up that gap, was what if we cut our road budget back to not historic levels, higher than that, either 250 or so, and use that gap to apply to this. Now what that means is, or what the impact is, would be the large-scale paving projects with $250,000 in maintenance. We still do our patching, we still do our crack sealing, and as we talked about before, we have more capacity now than we have had in the past. For example, we have more personnel in public works. We recently purchased a hot box and a roller to do our own patching projects and not contract them out. So that is an area of spending we believe we could capture between $600,000 and $700,000 in that area. The second area is paying off existing variable rate debt. As you know, we had a couple loans that were taken out in the mid-2000s. The one that is next to be paid off has about a little over $1 million left to pay off. If we just paid it off out of reserve fund, that would save us approximately $200,000 per year in debt service. Taking that off, that makes $900,000. The last area would be future capital projects or the minor ones. Now we have to determine the need versus wants going forward. There are some capital projects that we plan out for over the next 5 years or so. Some are significant, some are already committed to, such as New Cannon Road, for example. That's not going away, that's going forward as is. Smaller projects could be deferred, could be removed. Obviously, we look at capital projects on an annual basis and see what we want to pay for that year, which could make up a little bit more. Again, if we're looking at today's interest rates, we're looking to make up just under $600,000. So any one of these sources could be used. That, of course, is your decision how you move forward, but that's where the capacity could come from if you choose to do so. Now to answer the timing question, I know the big question from residents also is, what is the true impact of waiting till next year to do this? Obviously, as you all have expressed, the timing is a major factor here in moving quickly through the process. I had Mr. Wright run the numbers on the impact. This is on an estimated fashion, but over the life of the term, or the life of the bond note, would be approximately $1.37 million impact if we wait till next year over now. That's about $46,000 annually of debt service. That would be more if we waited till next year versus this year. So as you've asked for that number, there it is. I talked before about Mr. Patterson going over the details of the resolutions in front of you, so Chris, if you're ready, sure, talk about that.
Let me stop to reemphasize something right there, if we can inject something. So you're saying, I understand holidays, but hypothetically speaking, if you could do this on December 31st and January 1st, if you were to do this on January 1st as opposed to December 31st, it's going to cost you an extra $1.3, almost $1.4 million over the life of the loan for that period. All right, so December, this is the reason this thing is going the way it is, nearly 1.4 after December 31st.
Correct. Assuming the tax bill make sure that it's moving now.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
Jim, those loans that you mentioned, does one of them include that $20 million loan that the previous administration took out in 2005? Is that paid off?
It's going to, the 2004 loan was not $20 million. The 2004 and 2007.
Yeah, we had two loans, one in 2004 and one in 2008.
Yeah,
But neither was for 20 million.
I thought the 2004 was for 20 million. That's not true.
No.
How much was it?
I will look that up for you. The original loan was for 3.5 million.
Okay. And then they added on to the 2008.
In 2008, there was another loan for 4.5 million.
Okay. All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
So, Kevin?
Obviously, this resolution before this body and contemplates financing for construction. I think it's worth this board to understand what the resolution itself actually does. And there are a handful of documents that are referenced in the resolution. I'll talk about each of those documents in a minute, but the general overall structure, I'd like to walk through again. We've done this, we talked about this at the last meeting, but I'd like to do it again. Assuming this body goes forward, if this body were to go forward and the IDB as well, the financing structure contemplates that the school board will transfer the property, the middle school property, the Lakeland Prep property, to the IDB. The IDB will then issue a series of bonds, and the proceeds of which will be used for two things. One, to acquire the site, the middle school that's there, and to deposit money into an escrow account to satisfy the capital outlay note. The remainder money will be deposited into a construction fund that would be used to construct the high school. The property and the school itself would then be leased from the IDB to the city pursuant to a lease agreement. That's one of the documents referenced in the resolution. Under the terms of the lease, the city would make rental payments to the IDB in an amount equal to the bond payment annually. The city's taxing authority is pledged as security for the bond payments. Of note, there's not a mortgage on the property. The property itself is not security for the obligation. The obligation rests with the city. The city then leases the property to the schools, the school board, pursuant to a sublease. The school system will simply pay a nominal amount to the city, and that money is not used, that's not security for the bond payments either. The IDB bonds are solely payable from the rent from the city and other city revenue. The city has an absolute obligation to make the rental payment, which is in turn the bond payment. The documents themselves, I think there are 7 or 8 documents. 8 documents on the agenda, 7 are referenced in the resolution. First is on the list I have an indenture. That's a contract between the IDB and U.S. Bank as the trustee for the benefit of the bondholders that are the investors. That the indenture outlines kind of the rights and duties and obligations of the IDB and the trustee in connection with the bonds, and sets forth the details of the security, again, the rental payment. The trustee administers the funds specified in the indenture in a fiduciary capacity for the bondholders. So that's just kind of, that document outlines that relationship. Also with the lease, we've talked about that a little bit. It's relatively straightforward. The lease is between the IDB and the city, where the IDB leases the property and the facilities to the city. The city pays the rental payments, as I referenced a moment ago, in an amount equal to the debt service of the IDB bonds. And then also, to reiterate again, the city has an absolute obligation to make those rental payments as the taxing authority of the city is the security. Also, as we mentioned, there's a sublease between the city and the schools. That sublease, the sublease confirms that the schools will have absolute authority to control, the school board has absolute authority to control and operate the school, middle school, high school on that property, even though IDB is the actual fee owner. There's another document that speaks to that, the interlocal agreements between the cities and the schools, and the IDB, where the school system is designated as the IDB's agent for construction of the high school project. And so that the school system is authorized to make draws from, on the construction funds available, through the trustee. There's also an escrow agreement that's contemplated as a resolution that the city has to enter into. The escrow agreement is between the city and U.S. Bank that details how the money that is used to pay off the capital outlay notes, how that is satisfied. Then there's a bond purchase agreement, which is the agreement between the IDB, the city, and the purchaser of the bonds, the underwriter, that provides for the terms of the sale, the bonds to the underwriter. And then lastly, there's a preliminary official statement. That's the document from the IDB with the, it's the IDB and the city's disclosure to potential investors that gives information about the bonds and the issuer. Upon closing, the preliminary official statement becomes the final official statement. But that's the use of that. That's what that is for, so that investors can learn about the bonds, the city, or the issuer and the bonds themselves to evaluate their investment. And then lastly, there's just a letter from bond counsel to actually retain bond counsel for their services in this transaction. Again, bond counsel is Bassberry and Sims. They couldn't be here tonight, but of course the city has a long-standing working relationship with them. And so here we are. Any questions about the actual documents themselves?
All right. We'll provide an opportunity for commissioners to ask questions of staff and make comments here in just a minute. I'd like for staff to get through their entire presentation. That's going to be it. Then that would be sufficient, I would think. But I don't know. I see several of the experts in the room, including Al and some others. I don't know if they have anything to present. Is that
I think that's it.
Y'all concluded comments by the city administration. Okay. All right. Very well. I will go to public speakers as we talked about. I do have one that's requested because they have a grandchild that has an event they want to attend. Susan, you'll be the first to speak. In just 1 second, let me. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me do this. Let me go to you first, and then we'll go through the public comments, and I'll make a few comments over the two commissioners. So, Susan, you want to come on up here? Just give us your address. I gave your name, so give us your address for the record, and you have the floor.
Okay, I live at 9704 Green Spruce Drive, and I've looked at the numbers presented by the city manager for the cost of the new bonds for the high school. In a recent Currents article, there was a chart showing the annual payment, as Jim mentioned earlier, for the debt, assuming a 4% interest rate over 30 years, for a total financed amount of $52.4 million, and that annual payment was right at $3.05 million a year. I've also read that there are typically potentially significant upfront costs.
One second. Let me stop your time 1 second. I'm getting signals from the back that they cannot hear. Is there any way we can turn the audio up for them? I think maybe it might not be you, it might not be the Indian, it might be the arrow here in this case. So let me get that address for you if we can.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Test. Give us a test.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 3. All right. I think that'll be as good as we can do right now. Okay. I'll start back.
Do you want me to start over or start my?
Oh no, just go ahead from where you were.
Okay. I've also read that there are typically potentially significant upfront costs when obtaining a lease revenue bond. the order that could be up to as much as 10% of the amount that's been borrowed. I haven't seen any information shared with the citizens regarding the cost benefit of a lease revenue bond versus a general obligation bond. So I wanted to ask, are there any upfront issuance costs to obtaining this bond? If so, how much? And assuming there are costs, why aren't we including those in the preliminary financing plan for education? Why isn't that included in the $52.4 million? And the last thing I would like to say is, Mr. Mayor, earlier you said the reason to do this now versus January 1st is to save us $40,000 a year or over $1 million over the course of the 30 years. But how much more is this lease revenue bond going to cost us than a general obligation bond would?
Okay. All right. Okay, just give your name for the record, please, sir.
And when you retired from the NFL.
Well, my career was long in the NFL. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Kyle Wright. I represent PFM, Financial Advisor to the city. And I just wanted to address that question very quickly. So Susan's absolutely right. There are costs associated with the bond financing, and there would be costs associated with the bond financing regardless of the mechanism in which those bonds were financed. So if you had a GO issuance or an IDB issuance, you would incur some costs associated with either one. So we ran the numbers this afternoon, and we're currently estimating about $500,000 worth of costs associated with this issuance. It's less than 10%. It's closer to 1% of the total par issuance. And the reason that we are estimating $507,000 to be approximate is because we reached out to the various service providers and tried to gather their cost of issuance to make sure we were representing that fairly. So so there is a cost associated with it, but again, I'd like to emphasize that the cost would be there regardless of the financing mechanism. There is a slight increase to cost going through the IDB as opposed to issuing GO bonds. We estimate that difference currently to be about $50,000 or in the range of $50,000 to $100,000 depending on various cost estimates. As of right now, it's closer to the low end of that range, it's about $50,000. So that's true, there is additional cost going to the IDB, but I'd also like to point out the fact that we have estimated the numbers that Jim presented earlier with the 3.5017 TIC and the $2.8 million annual debt service number. Those numbers are currently built assuming the $500,000 cost of issuance and assuming that those estimates hold. So what I'd also like to point out is we also ran the numbers of assuming what the cost would be between the IDB and the GO issuance, and Jim kind of alluded to it earlier. It's about $46,000 on an annual basis of savings that you would incur going through the IDB as opposed to issuing GO bonds. And that number is critical because that number represents the additional cost that you would incur through the IDB in terms of cost of issuance generally, and the additional cost that you may incur going through the IDB as opposed to going through a GO bond. So there's a pricing penalty associated with the IDB of about 5 basis points. And so once you include those two additional costs that you wouldn't see on a GO issuance, it still stands to scrutiny that IDB issuance saves you money in the long run as opposed to the GO issuance.
And that total estimate that it might save over the life of the loan?
It's about $1.4 million.
About 1.37.
Over the
Yeah.
life.
And that's what we presented earlier. It included all the things that she was trying to bring up
Yes, sir.
with her slant on it versus what I believe to be the reality. So, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a follow-up?
We allow you to speak, and then get you your answers to your question. If you have any more questions, you can come to us after the meeting, feel free to do that, and we'll get you the answers, okay? I've got a lot of cards here that I've got to go to. If I allow back and forth all night, then I'll be here all night. But we can certainly try to get your questions answered later on, okay? Nick, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Stephanie Leffler. Just give me your address for the record, please, ma'am.
9606 Oak Point Cove. I've got a handout, would you mind, I'll send you a pile of them and you can give one to everybody. I don't care.
I don't want our deputies to be engaged in that. If you would just
Well,
hand
yeah.
that back to her, she can hand it out if she'd like at whatever point she wants, but.
I wanted y'all to have it,
All right, so,
but,
oh, you wanted us to have it, or?
yes.
You
It was-
said everyone,
I
here on
meant-
stage, okay, yeah,
I meant
that'd be fine.
everyone.
Bring it on up. All right,
Yes.
you have the floor.
Okay, Mayor Bunker, after the $50 million bond referendum lost 60-40, I was here for the meetings where you described the good reasons to purchase the middle school with con notes, which of course the people couldn't vote on, but you did make a good point. You said you hated interest, you hated debt, and so my question to you is this: why are we refinancing the con loan now? Because what it sounds like we're doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, what it sounds like we're doing is we're borrowing money, so we're getting cash from one credit card, and we're putting that in, and we're gonna pay double interest now on the con notes that are, or the parts of the con note that aren't due yet. Is that correct?
When you're finished, we'll answer. You got the time, go ahead.
I think this type of lease revenue bond, from every kind of research that we've done, looks like a very, very expensive way to borrow money. And it seems to be only being done for one reason. And I don't think it's the 1.4 million that you say you're gonna save if this law passes the way you predict it will. I predict that we're gonna that this is gonna cost the taxpayers an extra $23 million or so. And you can laugh, but as of yet, we've heard no real numbers, and I'm pretty sure, Jim, yours are off too, about what it's gonna cost per year. I'm coming up with 3.8 million, but you can look at my math certainly and get back to me on that. Most importantly, why are we not allowing a vote on historic debt? Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. So, did she just walk out? I guess you don't want to answer. All right, next speaker. Sam Cooper. You walked out, it's all right. Sam Cooper. Go ahead, you got the floor, sir. Just give your address.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Sam Cooper. I live at 6504 Palomino. I've been here in Little Lakeland for just a few years. I have to echo her question about why the voters are not being given an opportunity to do this. I can only speculate that a similar referendum failed, and I'm thinking it would probably fail again. And we're not going to see that happen. Myself, I'm kind of wondering why. I consider myself a person who keeps a nose to the news pretty well, having been a former member of the Tennessee State Republican Executive Committee and trying to stay on top of things. I'm kind of wondering why I didn't hear anything about this until yesterday, and that was by a neighbor who read about it on Facebook. I listen to more news every day than, I don't know, than I have fingers and toes. But my big question is, why are we not going to be allowed to vote on this? When I bought my property just up the street from our city manager, I was congratulated on moving into an area that had some of the lowest property taxes in Shelby County. Now we don't. So that's my question. I want to know why I can't vote on this. And you're going to say, if we wait till after January 1, well, I think we're not going to be allowed to vote on it, because if you do, you'll lose.
All right, and I'll still get to some of these questions in just a minute. Jay, Tyler, best way to do this is just get through it, because he had some of the same questions Stephanie did. And I'm sure all of them.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity, I appreciate it.
Address for the record, please, sir. Address for the record.
Yes.
Sir.
5187 Adagio Lane.
Thanks, sir.
I'm not very good at following instructions.
No, you have the floor. I didn't give them to you, that's why. You're all right. Go ahead.
I think this is too much, too soon. It's too expensive, and I'm really disturbed about the way we're going to finance this. I too would like to have an opportunity to vote on it. I think it's, as you said, Mayor Bunker, this is a historic moment in our city, and I don't know why we're not allowing the citizens to have a say in that historic event. That's fine. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it very much.
Good. Thank you. That was brief. All right. Luke Nelson. Anyone else who wants to speak, just go ahead and get the deputy's attention. I'll bring you a card.
Lynn Melton, 9584 Pine Point Drive. With regards to last night's school board meeting, the time change and the notifications that were not given in the usual consistent manner as other notices, this has the appearance of trying to fool the public. It was extremely distasteful. You can blame these actions all you want on the residents, yet equal and fair treatment to all residents, regardless of which side they're on this vote and their decision, has not occurred in this town. You are shoving an agenda down our throats without the right to vote, and this will have everlasting repercussions. By using this form of financing, which carries more risk to the city, and therefore millions more in cost than any other form of municipal finance, this bond is ill-suited for the type purpose, and it's very rarely used. The manner and the speed which this board has handled this decision, which is the largest debt in the history of Lakeland, is unacceptable. Proof of due diligence in vetting these bonds was not shown, and you have a fiduciary relationship to all of the residents of Lakeland. Consider this notice of my intent to seek legal remedy to this situation. Thank you, Philip, for allowing me to speak.
Good. All right, Kevin Biggs. Address for the record, please.
6526 Palomino.
Okay.
I'm a resident of Sam Cooper, and only been here for about 2 years. Like him, I moved out this way because it was an area of low taxes. Our children went to Arlington. Arlington suited us fairly well for our children. And I do believe that this is a historic thing we're doing here, that you're doing, and I do believe that it should be voted on by the residents. I think this is something from just being here only a couple of years and seeing how it's being done, does seem to be kind of, trying to, get an agenda done that, doesn't necessarily have the backing of people. And I would like to see that.
What date did you move here exactly?
October of 20, I guess it's 15.
Okay, Deborah Scott.
My name is Deborah Scott. I live at 4593 Mount Gillespie Drive. I also have a problem with not being able to vote for this. If our community wants a high school, then let us all vote, let us discuss it, and let us use the best and lowest interest rate possible to borrow the money. That's it.
You win an award for brevity.
You win an award for eye contact.
Thank you. Elizabeth Rook.
Hello.
Address for the record, please.
It is 12413 Elderton Drive. I'm an Arlington resident, and 2981 Canada Road, Suite 102, Lakeland business owner. Good evening. Nice to meet you in person, except for Josh and you. Obviously, I love Lakeland, otherwise I would not have chosen to open a business here. And I do believe economic development is extremely important for the city, and any commercial and residential growth would be a benefit to my business. However, the substantial increase in property taxes here the past few years have made the lease at my office go up $500 a month over the past 2 years. It was $300 the year before last, and an additional $200 this year. Retail businesses are able to pass along that increase to their customers. For instance, my neighbor, Little Caesars, if anyone's wondering why the pizza went up $1, or everything in there went up $1, it's because they pass along the increase to their customers. But unfortunately, that's not an option for me. So I just feel like the slow growth in Lakeland, in my opinion, is due to the uncertainty of the property taxes. Yes, people move to the area for schools, I do agree with that. But, in sales, and Josh, you can understand this, you try to sell on value, but, most everyone's decision is based off cost. And I just feel like the excessive amount of debt, maybe if we had some more documents or some financial data, maybe, but, citizens would feel more comfortable with your decisions, but I haven't seen anything like that. And I just feel like maybe you can afford the schools technically today. We won't have a tax increase today, but eventually we will, very soon. And, with my lease being up in the next 6 months, how all this plays out is, it weighs on my, decision. Not saying that if we pass this, I'm moving out of Lakeland. It's just, I have to think of the financial aspect of all of this. So I was just wondering, if you allow the residents to vote, and the majority actually do want the bond debt in high school, which very well may be the case, wouldn't you be able to use a more suitable financing method? So I'm under the impression that the bond you're using has There's millions in upfront fees. I know you said it was 50,000. But I was wondering, is there like an actual cost breakdown over the life of the loan between the bond that you're proposing versus a general obligation bond? Just because if you let the citizens vote, then they can't get upset with you if they lose. And then you can build schools and everybody can be happy. You know, it's just, I don't know, I would like to see, a breakdown, or more financial data of what's actually going on. So I could, you know, better prepare. And I'm sure all the other residents feel the same. That's all, thank you.
Okay, let me ask you for clarification on a couple of things here, because I understand everybody's, and I'm trying to understand as we go along. So you have an insurance company here, you
Yes.
live in Arlington, but you have a company here.
Yes, sir.
You said that your taxes were increased, your property taxes were increased the last 2 years. Okay, and, but then you said you paid a lease, so you don't own the property, right?
No,
Okay, so you pay a lease to a landlord.
correct.
Okay, so did the landlord tell you that he was increasing your lease because property taxes went up?
Yes, they
Okay.
send out it's a common area maintenance
Right,
sheet that I get once a year.
right.
And
Okay, I just wanted to point out that you may not be totally fair with you because we actually decreased taxes this year. Do you know
Well, I
that?
haven't gotten it this year. I'm talking about the 2015-16.
So you're saying it went up $500 a month in essentially a year?
Okay, so you went up 2015. We had one tax increase,
Right.
and then we went down on taxes, but yours went up 2 years.
And the
So you
tax
might want to
increase-
check into that, I'm just saying.
And remember, the tax increase before, the 55-cent school tax increase was imposed by Mayor Carmichael before us. The 85-cent tax increase, now, we've done, well,
Yeah.
the body did a 55-cent school tax
As a matter of
increase,
fact,
but
what-
85 before.
Let me ask, when was the tax increase for the school? May of 2015, right? May of 2015.
So I moved in
Hang on one second.
2013.
May of 2015 was the tax increase. When was the original tax? 2012?
12, yeah.
2012. And you moved in when?
2013,
Okay.
So you would have had the tax increase by Mayor
Only-
Carmichael in
yeah.
place when you moved in.
correct.
That's right.
And then,
My fiscal year is not,
Mhm.
it's June.
okay,
So,
so 2015, 2016, you're saying you received a tax increase, or an increase in your lease due to taxes?
$500 a month.
2015 was an additional almost $300 a month.
Mhm.
2016 was 205.
Yeah, you need to check with your landlord.
Right.
That's a problem between you two,
Yeah.
not us.
I
We've gone
mean,
down
I
in
mean,
your
he sends
taxes.
out, you know.
We've gone down in your taxes. Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Just want to narrow down on the truth. John Cooley. Mr. Cooley, address for the record, please.
10246 Gillespie Oak Drive, 42nd drive from this spot right here. To this mayor and the vice mayor and these commissioners and these officers here. And to the citizens of Lakeland, I bring you greetings. I apologize for not being offended by the tax increases that are proposed here. I've got 3 kids, ages 7, 5, and 3. And when my 3-year-old son turns 18, I'll probably be 62. If I hang in there a little bit. We need a school. We need a high school. We need one because it lends legitimacy to our city. It also allows us to have our say in their education. Nobody likes paying money for anything. We want everything for free. But the bottom line is that you're not going to be able to convince people to pay for something regardless of how good it is. There are always going to be people who do not want their taxes to go up. It's a part of life as far as I'm concerned. I also run a business, also have to deal with increases in pay to my employees for all kinds of reasons. My costs go up. Sometimes I have to take my pay down. But the bottom line is I'd like for my kids to get to school at a good hour instead of 7 o'clock in the morning. And also, when schools do well, like Lakeland Elementary, highest ranked school in Tennessee, it brings not only attention, but it brings also increased dollars from the state. We need something that we can have a say in. So if this, I'm not arguing against allowing people to vote for increased taxes for a school, because I think most of us would say yes. I think most of us want our children to have an education that we can speak on. Because when we send our children elsewhere, and they do well there, then those other schools and cities get monies for our kids performing well. And also, if we have a problem with our children's education, we can't say much in another city, because we don't belong there. And sometimes they remind us of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Dee Dee Tipper, I have next.
I live on 319 North Burton
Okay.
I don't understand why y'all are not leaving the con loan as it is, and instead of refinancing something that we already have to pay interest on, and now we're gonna pay interest on it again, and then borrow for the high school separately. I don't know if that just doesn't meet y'all's agenda, to build it. I don't like that we're not getting to vote on it. If that's what the majority says, and after a vote, that's fine, but I don't feel like that is what the majority wants. I don't understand why y'all wouldn't allow a vote to see. Also, Josh, you, in December 1st, in the Memphis News article, you said, we understand that for us to have a high school in the future, the Lake District needs to become a reality. We all want the Lake District to be successful. But what are we gonna do if it doesn't happen? What if it's not successful? What if, like Elizabeth said, the businesses come here and they see the taxes are too high, we don't have something that appeals to them, or they come in and they turn around and leave and it's not successful? What are the backup plans?
Okay, Anna Smith. Hey.
My address is 10239 Lakeland Drive. I'm Anna Smith, a military spouse, a homeowner, and a landlord in Lakeland. And I hope tonight that I represent the silent neighbor that you all have. And I say silent because as a military family, every time we move, we don't register to vote, honestly. Things happen in small communities and we don't know, and by the time it takes effect, we've already moved. We move every 2 to 3 years typically. So, when the referendum happened in 2014, 15, which was it? I was registered to vote in Hawaii. And I'm kind of embarrassed by that because I really thought that, of course, everybody would support a school, so I don't need to register. Obviously, I was incorrect. We moved to California, and I then registered to vote in Lakeland because we are still homeowners here. So I registered and I voted for the commission by absentee ballot, and I went down to the submarine and made my husband do the same thing. And as a military spouse, I think I'm also a bellwether for our community. Right now, people are moving in and people are moving out. And when people move in, what we do is we ask our friends who've been stationed here before, and their friends who've been stationed here before, where do you live? And right now, the answer is Lakeland. Everybody says, you want to be in Lakeland. That's the place you want to be. Let me tell you this specific neighborhood. Hey, I've got a friend, their house is for rent, and that's how it works. 15 years ago, we were told we should all live in Bartlett, and we did. But those schools didn't continue to perform, so nobody's living in Bartlett anymore, or at least that's not on the top of the list, I should say. Also, our home values have gone up just since we purchased in 2013, so much so that my husband and I wanted to buy investment properties, and instead of buying in Cordova, right across 64, we see it on our side, and we bought 2 investment properties in Lakeland. We pay a little bit more for them, but we can also ask a little bit more in rent. So that's something that's important to us. In 5 years from now, my husband will retire from the Navy, and we hope to move back here. Not because we have any family here, but because this feels like home to us. We love our house, we love our neighborhood, we love Lakeland. But the deciding factor for us will be a high school. And if there's not a high school, we'll look at Germantown or maybe moving into Memphis and send our kids to private school.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Brennan. All right, to the floor.
My name's Dan Brennan. I'm at 10244 Oak Levy Drive. I'm gonna be brief. Got to take my son to basketball practice here in a little bit. But my family moved to Lakeland 6 years ago. We did so for two reasons. One, our property value living in Cordova was going down. We took a bath on our house at the time, $35,000. Moved into Oakwood. Immediately gained that back threefold. But the most important reason we moved to Lakeland was for the elementary school. Loved seeing the middle school go up, and I can't wait for the high school to go up as well. And my two children, Ava and Cannon, are really excited about it, and can't wait to fulfill the dream of graduating as a Lakeland High School graduate. So my wife's a teacher. We value education very highly in our family. Both of my parents were professors at Indiana State University. I think it's very important for us to value education in a way that our children see is something they can do and prosper in going forward with their lives. So thank you for everything you guys are doing, and hopefully we can get this high school built.
Thank you. Carl, our city was from Carl Hilton, so. Carl, address for the record, please.
4309 Canada Road. Pull something up real quick. I was thinking, I didn't sign up when I first came in. My parents bought property in 1977 as the city was being formed. Several years after that, my parents built a house. We moved when I was in 9th grade. Lakeland was tiny. And I'm going to quote from our first mayor, Beverly Rivera, from the commercial appeal in 1978. It says, "We are not naive. We know someday we'll have to have one," referring to property taxes. Even the people understand that. And then in January 18th, in the press seminar, 1979, she said, "There won't be property taxes anytime soon because we aren't that developed. When more people move in and start demanding more services, we will have property taxes." We didn't have property taxes for 35 years. We went from 600 people in the city of Lakeland to the economy crash in 2008. We were not prepared for 2008. There was no planning from the government in the 90s into the 2000s. Lakeland collapsed. In 2012, Carmichael sent out a flyer to everybody in Lakeland asking for donations in order to help pay for services in Lakeland because he was too afraid to hand Lakeland its first property taxes. Next year, he handed us an 85-cent property taxes because we couldn't stand on our own. Now, we have started moving forward. We have moved out of our parents' basement and started becoming our own city. We have gotten a great school system. We are building, we have finished the middle school, and we need to complete building a full high school and a full system. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Just looking through some of these questions, comments. I was looking at Mr. Biggs' comments in particular. Mr. Biggs, you said you moved here in October of 2015. You moved here because there were no taxes, and that's what attracted you to the city. May of 2015 is when we had our tax increase for the schools. Taxes are actually lower now than they were then, so you should really love the city now, but you stand here and complain. I don't know how many different ways we can say this. It seemed like everybody touched on this, why can't we vote? We told you time constraints. I'm going to lay that out in just a second. I'm trying to get through these, just 1 second. What if Lakeland, the Lake District is not successful? We're going to make this bond if we never have any economic development. We're going to make this bond now. You've said that
That's not
before.
what he said in Memphis Daily.
Hang on one second.
That's not what he
Point
said.
of personal privilege, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Thank you.
The quote that I made in the Memphis Daily News was in support of Yehuda and the Lake District. That all took place before Vision 2020 even came to fruition. Yehuda was on the courthouse steps. I had a gentleman in front of me asking me about the importance of it. Knowing that someday, one day, I hope that we would have a high school for our kids, I said, with a future high school impending, that this would be very important. This would be a necessity for us. And I agree with that 100%. I had no idea that interest rates had dropped from a prospective 5% to now almost 3.5%. I had no idea that our strong retail sales had recovered so quickly. No one had looked at the numbers. Vision 2020 came out. Mr. Mayor said, you know, let's take a look at the numbers of everything. Next thing we know, it's possible. So yes, ma'am, I did say that. And once I found out that we were able to afford it on our own without that, as the mayor just mentioned, regardless of what happens with the Lake District, support it 100% still. Based on today's current budget for the city, we can afford it without a property tax.
And we're not figuring in any economic growth in these numbers. We've said that time and time again, and these continue to be talking points online and in these meetings, which leads me to believe that they're not after the truth. People are not after the truth. You're not after the facts.
I want to
You who
vote.
speak,
Just after a vote.
Vote.
you who speak against this thing are just against anything. Against
I'm not
growth.
against anything.
I'm a teacher, I still want to vote.
I'm still answering your questions. We've answered them before. We're doing it again. Time changes for the school board. That was a special call meeting. I think y'all gave notification, right? I mean, I heard it was commercial appeal. What was it?
Commercial appeal and Lakeland Current.
Commercial appeal and Lakeland Current.
And if I can point to that, I actually went back and watched our BOC special meeting last week, just a moment. I watched our meeting last week. The last 3 minutes, Mr. Mayor, you clearly said, in a conversation with our city manager, citizens be watching for a posting. There will be a school board meeting on Monday and a BOC and IDB meeting on Tuesday. It was clearly communicated to be watching for it. And
We mentioned
it was
it.
clearly posted.
Just another point to fight, right? Too much too soon. I just simply disagree with that. Then why are you refunding? So, let me go over the timeline of events. We as a Board of Commissioners, we work on several different projects that we really specialize in. That being said, just point out that Josh, our Vice Mayor, has been working on economic development for quite some time. We have Clark, who's been on our municipal planning committee for a long time. Parks and Rec, everybody has a little discipline. Education, things like that. We've been kind of working in hand in hand with education. Roadways, fire service, we've all participated in the fire service one way or the other, get legislation passed over a long period of time. I mean, it's been years. We saw a lot of things coming to fruition very quickly. So we saw the need to regroup as a body and really discuss a long-term plan for the city. And so that's what we started. We talked about it, I think it was early September, mid-September, talked about, hey, we need to get together as a body and discuss these things, see how we can orchestrate how all of this is going to come about. We have several different things going in several different directions. So we call a series of meetings, we call it Vision 2020. Essentially, it's a long-term plan for the city. Each one of these meetings was designed to discuss a specific aspect of that long-term plan. In other words, I think our first one was about fire or roadways. Which one? Economic development? Yes, sir. Anyway, we had one for economic development, we had one for fire, we had one for education, one for roadways and infrastructure, parks and recreation is another. So we had a series of meetings that we started at that time. During the education meeting, we requested numbers because we had looked at fire numbers and all these other things. We asked what the current numbers would be on a school. And when we got that, and we had our fire numbers, and we have all of these things presented to us, what our roadways are gonna cost, and all of that, parks and recreation, we got numbers for that as well. When we got all of that data, we got with this, we had a report come in. This was November, I think first meeting in November was, first or second meeting in November was education. It was actually the first meeting, because it was reported to us that first Thursday in November, wasn't it? First Thursday in November, she had the Monday, the tax bill, President Trump's tax bill was dropped on Friday. And that Monday, council got word of how that might impact the overall deal. And so that Thursday, when it was presented to us, by the superintendent, and we realized it's possible to afford it. One of the things council brought up was, if you think you're able to do this, based on the finances we thought we might be able to do this, you need to know that there's a tax bill pending. In addition to that, I've voiced concerns about interest rates climbing and construction costs climbing. A $50 million bond issuance, if you have interest rates climb 0.1%, it's significant. If you have construction costs climb, it's significant. If you have this tax bill passed, it could be a deal killer. So we knew the only way to get this done, and the time frame we had, which was by January 1st, was the IDB route. That is why. Now everybody's asked, we've been through this one time before. We explained this in our last meeting. We're explaining it again, all right? So, fight if you want online, I could care less. Last time I'm gonna explain it. Only route we could take to get this done on time was IDB. That's it. That's all we could do. We can't, without a tax increase. You heard a minute ago, all the rumors swirl. I mean, come up here, we have professionals in this business, come up and say, we figured in all the additional costs for these bonds versus these, December 31st versus January 1st, net is gonna benefit you $1.37 million. What do? Next speaker comes up, I doubt it. No, not gonna happen. I mean, really? These are professionals who do this area. These are some of the best people in the country. Some of the best people in the country to do this. The same people worked with us in the middle school. The things that they said happened exactly like they said. They have a perfect track record with us. Exactly like they said. Even better than they said. We got a lower interest rate than they were estimating. They always use conservative figures. These are conservative figures. Today's rate, we heard, I think, Jim testify, if these rates hold, we're going to be far below what we're estimating. Far below. Not only are we not going to have, not only do we factor in any economic development, we didn't factor in any economic development. And not only are we not going to have a tax increase, but from day one, our budget is going to operate in the black. We're going to be in the black. We're going to have to borrow from reserve funds to make this happen at all. But I know that tonight on the internet, you busy bees, you're going to get out there and just doubt everything just because you can, right? You say it enough times, it's going to be true. Keep saying it, it's going to be true. But I see this happen over and over and over again. I wonder, do you care anything about this city? Do you care anything about it? Because, look, I've heard y'all trash, and you will go, it seems like you're trying to accomplish mission at any cost. We actually had people in this room, I know who they are, their names were given to me by a commissioner and by a news reporter. They contacted them to try to derail the tearing down of the mall. Gave it to me. I know who it was. I can point them out. Looking at one of them. I'm telling you, these people, you are trying to accomplish mission at any cost. Doesn't matter if it destroys the city. Absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
let me report on, so there's been a lot of talk online. I mean, I've probably seen more activity in the last week than I've seen, I don't know, probably in the last year or so. And every single person for or against was asked to email. Every single person was asked to send a Facebook message. I even had some people contact me through Nextdoor. But regardless of all of those different areas, I wanted to report on the results, based on all these different areas. So, I won't use their last name, but 4, I've got Stuart, Aaron, Chris, Sarah, Heather, Kevin, Brian, Aaron, Jody, Mandy, Dennis, Martha, Darla, Lauren, Tim, Alexa, Anna, Dan, and Carl. Against, so let's count the points, so I'm on 16 or so. Against, I have Clint and Jay. Those are the only 2 people in the last 3 weeks that have come out and said against it. I have questions from a Carrie, a Susie, a Melanie, a Sam, a Lou, a Kevin, a Deborah, an Elizabeth, that were asking about the process, but again, did not come out against it when asked to. So, I can also tell you that I have not had one previously elected official call me and say this was not in the best interest of the city. I have not had one person that has ran for an election in the last 2 or 3 elections call me and say this is not the best area for the city. I have not had one previously elected official or someone that ran for election stand at that lectern and tell me it was a bad idea. So this is the cheapest way possible to finance it. It gives us a say-so in our education, and I would encourage my colleagues to vote yes.
Mr. Mayor, you want to make?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I kept track of, very similar to Vice Mayor Roman, we had 2 different meetings. We had a big crowd last week, overwhelmingly supportive. Too bad we couldn't get everybody here on one night. That would have been an interesting night. But it was extremely supportive last week. I remember about a dozen different people speaking last week in support of the high school. Like you, Mr. Mayor, or Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, I kind of kept track of the messages that I've received in the last 24 hours. As we all know, it's difficult to get to these meetings. That's the first time my wife and boys have had an opportunity to attend the meeting in the past year. It's difficult, to say the least. But out of the messages that I've received, emails, private messages, texts, things of that nature, just in the last 24 hours, I've received 15 messages, 13 yes and 2 no. And so I think that that's a testament that I think it would be foolish for us to purely weigh one way of somebody giving an opinion, which is here before us, which I'm glad people get up here and do that. But we do try to listen to everybody if we possibly can. A couple other points that I want to make. Mr. Mayor, I agree with you. One of the things that was surprising to me, it was as if there was a playbook being used tonight. Mr. Wright eloquently got up and perfectly explained how we're saving money going the route that we're going. And the very next speaker got up and asked the exact same question after it had just been explained. I clearly think there's an agenda, no matter what is told or how it's explained, clearly it just doesn't matter. If we're saving money, I genuinely don't think that matters to some people. I really don't. Substantial tax increase is coming. I heard that a few times. Let me just read something. I read this last week. Sometimes words are important, as we all know. And one of the speakers tonight, Ms. Stephanie Leffler, posted this back in 2015. This is deja vu. I've heard this before. Arlington has fewer students than we voted for our own system. Where will parents move if our middle school ranks lower? Where will current Lakeland parents send their kids if they have a choice? I'll give you a hint, not Lakeland. It will have a devastating future consequence on our city and its school system, all for the low price of $20 million, lower property values, and an ever-increasing tax problem for all of us. I've heard this before. The exact opposite happened. Gentlemen, home values have gone up. Enrollment has gone up. It says it would have a devastating consequence on our school system. We have the #1 elementary school in the state since then. I prefer to look at facts and listen to professionals, not scare tactics. I don't make this decision based off emotion, I make it based off what I know is best for the future of our city. Not hope, not guess. I know this is the best thing we can do for the future of our city. From an education standpoint, I can say that as a school board member, as a commissioner, I can say from an economic standpoint, this is the best thing that we can do. This is how we attract growth. This is how we protect our future. And in my opinion, I think we're literally foolish if we do not proceed and proceed soon.
Mr. Mayor,
Got it, yes, sir.
can I call for the question?
Well, let me give the commissioners a chance, let me go through the commissioners, give them a chance to speak. I know each one of them probably wants to say a little something. You wanna go next, Commissioner Clark?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be brief, actually. But I did want to say that I was on the board in 2005. I was on the board in 2005. And every good thing that came along in Lakeland, I was voted down 4-1. And every good thing that was voted down went to Arlington. I mean, almost everything. I mean, we built Arlington with all the things that came before the board, that we turned it down, and it all went down to Arlington. And I know that's how Arlington got built, really. But now we've got a great opportunity now. I think most people know, at least my friends know here, that I had a stroke in 2009. So 2013, I wanted to prove to myself that I was back, so to speak. So I said, I'm going to run for president. And I went out and knocked on all the doors along with Wyatt. And we made promises to everyone that we were going to move this city along. You know, we were going to come out of the dark ages. We were going to be a full-grown city, and we made all these promises. And if you just look around, I mean, look around at all everything that's happened in the last 4 years, and I know we have kept our promises. So I am very happy. I know this might be bragging, but I'm happy to say that I'm going to be the only commissioner that voted for the middle school and the high school. And I think that Carl Helton said pretty much everything that I wanted to say too. So thank you, Carl.
All right.
Thank you all for being here. There's many passionate views from both sides. And let's say we all look at the same facts. I guess with me and other gentlemen up here, I've arrived at the point where it's just a smart move to build a high school, to stand on our own 2 feet, to have a say in our children's education K through 12. Even if people that say they don't want to build a high school, some of them admit, well, we need to build it later. But then it's going to cost more. And eventually we have to pay for it, because schools don't fall from the sky for free. Eventually we have to pay for it. And we have to be the ones to pay for it and invest in our children and lay that strong foundation. And having a K through 12 system gives us so many more opportunities and helps build our community. I think it's a smart move and a wise move, looking at the big picture. So that's what I said.
Correct. I addressed the opposition a moment ago. Let me just say one thing to finish up. You know, we look at Lakeland. We look at Lakeland 4 years ago. 4 years ago, most people didn't know where Lakeland was. As a matter of fact, I was congratulated more for being mayor of Arlington than Lakeland. People didn't know who we were. They didn't know where we were, and it was relatively unknown. Now, 4 years later, in the last couple of months. We have the City Engineer of the Year State Award. We have an exemplary school district, goes to the top 2% of schools in the state. We have the top performing elementary school. We have the middle school facility of the year. So 4 years ago, we were relatively unknown. Today, we're receiving accolades, sit at the top of the state in several different areas. I think it's remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. We have several commissioners sitting up here, all of which I believe were very clear in their campaigns about where they stood on schools. I don't think there was any confusion about Commissioner Wesley Wright. There wasn't any confusion about where he stood on school. There wasn't any confusion about the vice mayor. I think they actually took strong positions in favor of schools. I know I did. I know Commissioner Plunk did, and Commissioner Wright, he was a former school board member, he was appointed here, but nonetheless, the powers to be, the powers that were elected on this body ran on pro-school, pro-growth platforms. As a matter of fact, my platform, my campaign slogan was moving Lakeland forward. That's what I plan to do tonight. So let's call for a vote. All right, I'm going to do a roll call. I'm recording.
Vice Mayor Roman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wesley Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Matt Wright,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Plum, and
Yes.
Mayor Bunker.
Yes. Now some tally.
Yep, unanimous, 5-0. Yes.
All right, the vote passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman, school board, and the citizens of Lakeland. I think this is the best thing for our city, our city's future. Thank you all for your work. And do we have anything else to come before the committee? All right, Commissioners, y'all ready to adjourn? You just want to talk for a while? Or what? Ready to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion, sir.
I have a motion by the Vice Mayor. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Wesley Wright. Any objection?
None.
No objection, so we'll go right to